may look like Time Team's on its summer holidays, but we're here to do some serious archaeology, I promise. We're in Northumberland, close to the Scottish border, and this gorgeous beach and these sand dunes lie just below a serious medieval castle, Bamburgh. William the Conqueror realised the strategic value of this fortress site as a buffer against the rampaging Scots. And the Normans built the core of the present-day castle in the late 11th century. But it's been a stronghold for all sorts of people since long before the Normans ever got here. Most intriguingly, the Anglo-Saxon Bernician kings, overlords who ruled great swathes of Britain during Northumbria's so-called Golden Age. But despite all this being on the record, Bamburgh's always been something of an enigma. All that, though, is about to change. We've been invited here by Graham Young and the Bamburgh Research Project, who've been digging here for about 15 years, and they've had some incredible finds. In a spectacular place like this, there are endless things to find. So when the guys working here asked us to muck in with them, it was an offer we couldn't refuse. Bamburgh Castle lies on the northeast coast of Northumberland. It's built on a striking outcrop of the Great Windsill, a giant slice of volcanic rock that covers around 1,500 square miles of the north of England. This natural plateau stands 150 feet above sea level. It's the perfect spot to defend, and Bamburgh dominates the surrounding area. Over the years, some incredible artefacts have been discovered at Bamburgh. So we're making our first stop at the castle's Archaeology Museum to see some of the highlights. Cool, Mick, look at this.
Oh, crikey, that's an early sword of some sort, isn't it?
Is it Anglo-Saxon?
It's believed to be so, yes. It's a two-strand pattern-welded sword.
What is pattern welding?
It's where you get different bars of iron and you hammer them together to strengthen the iron, so you've got a much better cutting weapon.
How do you know it's pattern welded?
It's been X-rayed, and we can see from the X-rays, you can see the structure.
Is this one pattern welded too?
It is. That's actually the 6 billets of iron. At the time it was found, it was an unprecedented find in the world.
So these are very expensive items.
Very much so. They reckon about 1,000 man-hours to make a sword like this.
And there are plenty of other high-status finds on display here, including this tiny gold plaque, which is known as the Beast of Bamburgh.
It's your classic biting beast, as art historians call it. Absolutely characteristic of the whole vigorous school of art of the 7th century.
Vigorous is a great word for this kind of thing, isn't it?
It is.
Would you call that vigorous as well?
I would, yes.
I mean, this looks like some sort of Anglo-Saxon cross shaft, doesn't it?
And certainly when it was discovered in the 18th century, that's what they believed it was, with that connection with crosses throughout the area. Yeah. But the opinion's changed now. If you look on the end, you'll see this pattern, stonework. And if you were to try and extrapolate the artwork across here, you'd find it wouldn't fit on a cross.
So if it's not a cross, what do we now think it is?
It's now believed to be a section from a stone chair or a stone throne.
What kind of chair might that have been?
Well, in a place like this, such a natural centre of authority, this must be the seat of the man of authority, the king or one of the earls.
Experts from Durham University carefully studied the stone and now have a pretty good idea what the whole seat would have looked like. So it's a throne?
Well, you call it a throne. The Old English word would be a yiftstool, a gift stool.
And what's the difference between a throne and a yift stool?
Well, the gift stool says so much more, doesn't it, Tony? It's so much more poetic.
It's the same thing, isn't it? It's 2 words for the same thing.
To you, maybe.
That is so typical of you. These valuable finds fit with the earliest written accounts of Anglo-Saxon Bamburgh. The Venerable Bede, Britain's first historian, describes it as a royal city. So it was undoubtedly an important place, but what more can archaeology tell us about daily life in Anglo-Saxon Bamburgh? I think it's time for us to meet the team working here and start getting our hands dirty. Graham, how long have you been in charge of the archaeology here?
Well, we started in 1996-7 when we just wrote to Lady Armstrong and asked if we could come and play in her big house.
This place has got a bit of a hold on you, hasn't it?
Well, definitely. I'm from Northumberland. Every summer I used to get brought up to see houses. We'd play on the beach and I'd insist on being taken around Bamburgh Castle. So it's almost certainly why I ended up as an archaeologist.
But apart from being local and apart from being an archaeologist, apart from wanting to dig a big hole and have a fun time here, you must have real archaeological aims. What are those aims?
It's an important site. I mean, it's one of the palaces of the kings of Northumbria, one of the principal ones, along with York. So it's a really important place, and there's very little archaeological work being done here to flesh out the pages of Bede. So we want to know what's going on here in the fortress. What does it look like? Who lives here? What buildings do they live in?
Graham and his team have been focusing their recent efforts on two key areas within the castle. A trench by St Oswald's Gate, which was thought to be the original entrance to the castle, and a second trench just to the east of the first one, closer to the main part of the castle. Within this second area, there's strong evidence of intense activity in the Anglo-Saxon period. But this is a beast of a trench to get your head round.
It looks a real confusion of boulders and bones and stuff.
Essentially, that's what it is. We have a lot of stones which, upon first inspection, appear to be completely random and quite ill-to-be.
Right.
But when we start to kind of clean up around them and define where they are, we start to see that they're actually kind of disguising more structure.
Yeah, I mean, I can see a sort of rectangle of stones there
you
that's
can
obviously
see
a structure.
Yeah, but you see, what you don't want to do, you don't want to get focused in on small groups of stones. I mean, that is only part of a much, much bigger picture, isn't it? What's the bigger picture?
The bigger picture we seem to have is that we've got an area of metalworking. So we seem to have a lot of metalworking ash, which is deposited, and a lot of material which seems to be kind of being melted down.
So we're beginning to understand some of the activities going on in Anglo-Saxon Bamburgh. A lot of us still think of this period of history as the Dark Ages. But Anglo-Saxon Northumbria was actually in the middle of a so-called Golden Age. For me as a southerner, this has always been a really out-of-the-way place, but there was a time, wasn't there, where the kings here ruled great swathes of England.
Oh, for several generations. Very great kings indeed.
The Golden Age of Northumbria because of all the gold.
You'd think so, Tony, but it's an old-fashioned sort of a phrase referring to the light of learning and art, of which a supreme example was produced just over there, protected by the citadel, Lindisfarne and the Lindisfarne Gospels.
The Lindisfarne Gospels were made just up the road from Bamburgh, 8 miles away as the crow flies, on the island of Lindisfarne. These Gospels are one of Britain's greatest art treasures of any period, ancient or modern. They're an exquisitely illustrated illuminated manuscript produced in the 7th or 8th century in honour of local saint Cuthbert. Lindisfarne Monastery was founded with the support of the Northumbrian kings. It was their patronage and financial muscle that made the Gospels and other fine craftsmanship possible. But despite this rich history, there's been very little archaeology done in this part of Britain.
We know that these kings could command vast resources and wealth and treasure, but archaeologically, we've not actually managed to find it such as we have down south at Sutton Hoo.
What role did Bamburgh play in the lives of the kings here?
Oh, this was their centre of authority. Who commands this great rock, commands all the landscape around it.
And Bamburgh wasn't some isolated frontier outpost. According to Bede, at their peak, the Northumbrian kings may have ruled as far north as the Firth of Forth, as far west as Strathclyde and Solway, and as far south as the Humber. A power base like Bamburgh must have had large, important structures, and a clue to these has recently emerged in one of the trenches.
We have an industry in this area as well. It's not the metalworking which we've seen up there. We actually have in here, this big kind of donut-shaped thing is a big industrial mortar mixer.
I mean, that is really, really significant. And I mean, if you've got a mortar mixer, it does mean that somewhere in the very, very near locality, you've got a major stone-built building.
Yeah, of that period. And of course it means there's lime kilns producing the lime from either limestone or shells or something like that. So yeah, that's really, really significant.
So what sort of date are we looking at?
It may well be that we're looking at Anglo-Saxon deposits here.
That's quite a good sequence, isn't it?
For you, Mick, it's absolutely idyllic. The Saxons, they're the only period that matter, according to you.
Of course, of course. You can talk about single periods, you and your Paleolithic. Don't wag your finger at me.
The mortar mixer is a key discovery. It's a strong indication that somewhere on this site there could be large Anglo-Saxon stone buildings. It would be a rare discovery, as most Anglo-Saxon buildings were made of timber. The few stone buildings that we do know about from this time are churches or abbeys. But given Bamburgh's royal status, we could now be on the trail of stone-built royal palaces or halls. So, where are they?
I came across this plan, which was produced by an antiquarian in 1805, and he's planned all the buildings up here. And interestingly, plans a rectangular building here, pretty much where we're sitting at the moment on the lawn. And number 8 in his key says foundations of some very ancient buildings. But he does put a caveat, says possibly stables, which makes you think he didn't know quite what he was seeing at the time.
I'm sceptical you'd have stables up here right at the heart of the fortress where the most important structures should be.
Graham's also got historical evidence of a stone basilica or church within the Anglo-Saxon fortress.
So we've got a written paragraph of text, which is a little pen portrait of Bamburgh in AD 774. And it tells us the Basilica of St. Peter, first mentioned by Bede, is this side of the Anglo-Saxon well. And the Anglo-Saxon well is in the keep now. So we know that there's a basilica up here. And by analogy with other royal sites, we'd be astonished if there wasn't a great hall here as well.
I mean, would you expect the buildings, the early chapel and the Great Hall, to be stone-built or timber?
We have evidence increasingly of early but even stone structures going on here. And if they're going to build anything out of stone, you'd have thought the two most important buildings on site at some point would have been converted to stone.
As long as they're stone, we've got hope. But I mean, if they're timber and there's so much disturbance, then, you know, it's a different kettle of fish, really.
If I have any doubt, that's where they would be. I mean, the area is crossed with drains, and we've got this lovely photograph here from the late 1800s. Showing the kind of disruption that was going on during the restoration work.
We're sitting somewhere about here in the middle of all this chaos here, aren't we?
We certainly are.
Right, it looks like a builder's yard.
Yeah.
It certainly does.
Castle manager Chris is highly sceptical. He'll want to see some compelling evidence before he lets anybody rip up his carefully manicured lawns.
I'm hoping it's shallow chaos. I don't doubt that there are deep features, drains and such like which have gone through, but my experience in urban sites is that however much damage there is, there's usually some good archaeology as well, so fingers crossed there'll be some interesting stuff down here.
Well, the only thing we can try is radar. I mean, when I first looked at the lawn, I thought, fantastic, it's going to be easy. Now I've seen that, well, we'll give it a try.
Prove me wrong.
If we can prove Chris wrong, we might just have a chance of finding a very rare stone-built great hall or palace. Bring it on.
Join a thriving worldwide community of Time Team fans on Patreon.
This will enable us to continue expanding the Time Team world. Enjoy front row seats for the greatest show on Earth and under it.
Lunchtime day 1, and this is turning into a really interesting dig. We've been all around the active trenches, and we're already starting to come up with some intriguing theories. We've been confronted by the golden age of Northumbria, and if that wasn't enough, it seems like there might be something really interesting going on right down there. Time Team's John Gator is hard at work on a radar survey of the castle's inner ward. He's looking for evidence of Anglo-Saxon remains beneath the castle grounds. If John can give us something decent to go on, and that's not beyond our geophysics maestro on a good day, we might just be allowed to stick a new trench smack bang in the middle of this immaculate lawn. But while John's busy fiddling with his machines, we've made some other exciting discoveries. John, you've got a heck of a lot of these little white arrows here. What do they indicate?
They all indicate a small find, so quite a lot of these are copper stikers.
Stikers?
Yeah, the little Anglo-Saxon coins, which we think are being melted down to reuse the copper.
How many have you had?
We've had 77 came out in a block from here, but we've had over 100.
Looks like we can add 3 or 4 more to that or that.
Where can you see them?
Well, look, there's one there. See how it's tipping down into the sediment there? There might be another one over there. There's certainly a big lump of copper.
I think if that is it, it's several corroded together.
That one certainly is ready to go.
I think so.
Ought to be lifted.
Yeah, we don't like to leave them on the surface too much. They get weathered out over time.
You're going to whip that up then, Phil?
I do have the equipment, Tony.
Oops, there we go. Excellent. Have a look before it goes in the bag. Do you ever find them with anything visible on them rather than with just a load of mank.
They do have markings underneath that, and some of them are more clear than others when you take them out of the ground, but hopefully, as we take it, we should be able to clean those ones up.
And you think these might have been part of the recycling process?
Yeah, I think so. That seems to be what's going on here, that they're just collecting a lot of copper.
But why on earth would you want to recycle money?
Well, the thing is that it's gone out of circulation, so by the time that we're talking here, we've moved away from the Anglo-Saxon occupation of Bamburgh, so it seems that they're probably using a different form of coinage, if coinage at all. So it's basically gone out of use. It's no longer valid as money.
So it's a bit like our old coinage then.
Yeah,
it's
exactly.
absolutely no use to us today. We've changed our coinage. Every now and again we put our hand in our pockets or in a drawer and find an old shilling or something like that, but it's actually no use to us.
Yeah.
Shilling shows how often Phil puts his hand in his pocket. Well, we've had our heads down in the trenches. At the other end of the castle, a large lorry load of freshly quarried stone has pitched up. We're going to be setting the resident stonemasons a challenge, the like of which they've never faced before. But while they unload the stone slabs, Helen's got time to examine another fascinating find.
Right, T, what have we got here?
Looks like some sort of blade, or right now, without taking out.
Could be.
It's iron, is it? Yeah.
Yeah.
So what date might you expect that to be?
Well, you would hope that it's 10th, 11th century, unless, of course, it's in a pit, then it could be bring something up that's earlier or whatever. But I think that's ready to come out if you want to have a little fertile around.
Clean it up a little bit. Yeah.
It's
got a very thick back, hasn't it? Yeah, very thick.
What do you make of that?
Well, it's definitely blade shaped, but it's so thick. Do you think it's some... it looks less like a kind of all-purpose knife and more like something specialised.
Well, we have had tools before. We've had a chisel out of Trench 3.
I was wondering about leather, actually, too.
Leather working, yeah. Well, actually, we've got a lot of kind of horse-related or kind of livery kind of finds from this area, so perhaps I wonder if they are tooling leather. So a good find.
Yep.
Down in the castle's stable yard, the stone slabs have now been unloaded. We've been inspired by the stone arm we saw in the museum to build a replica of the entire seat. It's a tall order, and we're giving stonemason Kevin and Anglo-Saxon sculpture expert Joe just 3 days to complete the job.
And Joe, you're in charge of the design?
I am, yes. Basically, we've been bringing together all the different designs from the area to try and reconstruct or recreate what we think it may have looked like. This panel here is taken from Lindisfarne. We slightly changed it to follow the odd shape of the chair. This is what we call the Bamburgh Beast, which is a piece of gold that we found in the castle, so that's been replicated there. But everything that is on here is from the general period that our fragment is from.
We've got a sculptor coming to join me tomorrow, and we'll go head to head and see who can complete the most.
Yeah.
That'll be quite a good challenge. I'm looking forward to it.
Meanwhile, in the St Oswald's Gate trench, Graham's keen to show us some other recent discoveries.
Within this, I think particularly interesting, we've got two relatively early buildings. We're standing inside what I think is an Anglo-Saxon hall. You can see a relatively narrow cut, and it's cut through the bedrock.
Yeah.
We've got a right-angled turn, again, it's cut through the dolerite, where it outcrops, runs as a cut through the boulder clay, almost to the wall, disappears next to our new excavation. We've extended the trench basically so we can uncover a lot more of this structure and try and interpret it, but also because within it we've got another building, which is a broader flat-based trench with a single worked masonry block in it, so it looks like a robber cut for a stone building.
So there is archaeological evidence in this trench of early stone buildings at Bamburgh, but it's limited. The robber cut shows only where stones have been removed, robbed for reuse. Graham's convinced, though, that there are large Anglo-Saxon structures somewhere on site. Perhaps John's radar survey results will give us more to go on. So this is the geophys for this lawn?
Yes, it's the radar, and we're just looking at one time slice here that's going down to about 1.5 metres. And as we expected, there's lots of disturbance.
You're giggling with pleasure.
Well, it's very juicy, isn't it? I mean, it looks to me as if there's a big rectangular building. right in the right place?
Well, I'm surprised the results are so clear, and it would be a lost opportunity if we didn't go for it.
So what do you think that might be?
Well, either one thinks of a big timber hall or another
No, not timber.
right.
Almost certainly stone.
What do you think?
It is pretty clear, isn't it? I am surprised with what we saw with the services and from that photograph we looked at earlier.
Yeah.
So we're going to put a trench in?
I'd like to put a 4x2, something across that dense area there. But it would be in the middle of your lawn, I'm afraid.
A 4x2 in the middle of my lawn?
Yeah.
In 3 days? Well, if we can put it back before the potentially the largest wedding of the year on Saturday.
Oh, crikey.
No bother, no bother.
Then I think we can have a look.
If the bride disappears in the middle of the photos, there'll be trouble, won't there? So, John, where exactly would the trench go in?
Right in the middle of that lawn.
Okay,
Just about
so
there.
right in the middle of this pristine lawn, we're going to put in a 4x2.
Yeah.
I can't wait. Day 2 at Bamburgh, and Phil's been hard at it since first light. We've been given permission to put a new trench in the inner ward at the heart of the castle. To help power things along, Time Team's Matt is also getting stuck in. But there's only 2 days left, and the elements have turned against us. Yesterday the sun was shining, the flowers were blooming, and Bamburgh Castle here in Northumberland looked like a jewel set in a silver sea. But today, that's the sea, and that is Bamburgh Castle. Looks more like a flipping battleship, doesn't it? Mick, bit of a weather change, eh?
It isn't half, isn't it? I've got extra layers on today.
Yesterday evening, you wanted to put a trench in here in what's it called, the inner ward?
Yeah.
Right in the centre of the castle.
Well, I think so, and partly because it is right on the top of the hill and it's right next to the early church. And on the geophysics, it looks like this big rectangular building or what. So, I mean, I'm hoping it's something Anglo-Saxon, a hall or a church or something like that.
Well, at least that would put a smile on our faces, wouldn't it?
Well, it would, you know, we'll need it later on, won't we?
Looks like we found something to keep Phil and Matt out of trouble for a couple of days then. But not all of us are as keen on mud and rain as this intrepid duo. Stuart and John are keeping warm and toasty while poring over some important mapping data. Where have I heard that one before? As part of our goal to paint a picture of Anglo-Saxon Bamburgh, they claim to be looking for the location of the Vicus, the village somewhere outside the castle where the ordinary people would have lived.
That's pretty dramatic, isn't it?
It is. This is a LiDAR, which gives a three-dimensional representation of all the features on the ground. And the thing it illustrates very dramatically is the crag with the castle sitting on it and how it sits on what appears to be almost a detached piece of land here. It slopes down here, levels out, and then rises up again. I mean, what it looks like over a long period of time, the potential is that this has always been wet down here.
So that might have been an island.
I think there's a very real possibility of that.
So there may be no point in doing any survey in this sort of area, at least to start with.
I wouldn't have thought so. Just on the edge of where the landfall is, this is the area that's ripe for investigation in here, because if you look carefully, you can see all these stripes. These are all the medieval ridge and furrow fields and their boundaries. And what's interesting about those is that where ploughing takes place, people usually aren't living, so you're looking at where the ploughing ends to potentially where settlements might be. So it kind of looks to me that the area for any potential settlement is going to be around the core of the village, really.
So that's about a month's survey work.
How long have you got?
The LiDAR gives us enough of a clue to survey the area around the village church. Looks like no escape from the rain for our hardy geophys team after all. But while they get into their waterproofs, I'm heading inside to explore a bit more of the history of the castle itself. I reckon we've been neglecting it a bit since we arrived. And there's plenty to see. A well-stocked armoury, impressive staterooms and a cavernous hall. Wow, you can see why they call this the King's Hall. It just drips grandeur, doesn't it?
Certainly very impressive.
Although there's a part of me looking at it thinks it's not quite real. There's a lot of fantasy here.
It is and it isn't. The effect has been created, if you like, because during the Wars of the Roses in 1464, Richard Neville, the Earl of Warwick, destroyed it with cannons. It was, in fact, the first castle in England to fall to cannon fire.
With the arrival of powerful cannon, the age of the castle came to an end. They were no longer the impregnable fortresses they'd once been. Bamburgh lay in ruins, and for centuries it was simply left to decay. So when was it rebuilt?
Two main periods. During the 18th century, the Crewe trustees rebuilt a lot of it, but the major part, what we see today, is the works of the first Lord Armstrong.
A wealthy industrialist, Lord Armstrong bought the castle for £60,000 in 1894. Sounds like a bargain, but then he spent millions in today's money restoring Bamburgh to its former glory. Given the fact that there's been so much destruction and rebuilding going on here over the ages, I'm surprised that we think we might find anything Anglo-Saxon here at all.
Well, historically, Tony, we know it's here somewhere. And as usual, though, with castles, they are very, very complicated archaeologically. And it's great to be here because, surprisingly, a lot of these castles, which seem so familiar to us in the English landscape, have hardly been touched archaeologically. So there's everything to play for.
And we're not wasting any time, however grim the weather. In the rain-lashed fields below the castle, the hunt's now on for the Anglo-Saxon village.
It's a bit nicer when we're in the castle looking at the LiDAR.
Absolutely.
Can't we do the survey from there?
I think that's probably a good choice on a day like this, John. I mean, the focus here is the church. I mean, that's the oldest thing that we actually know about here.
Yeah.
That, you know, Bede mentions it in the 8th century. So it makes sense to sort of stay in this area over here.
Yeah.
So what do you think, having seen it?
Well, it seems fine, but I mean, this is one of the largest areas we talked about, and it looks pretty disturbed to me.
I mean, it's a bit more than disturbed. It's actually been dug right out and levelled up. When you look at the historic maps, you can see all sorts of things have gone, and then they've just literally dug that away. So
there seems little point in doing anything in here.
That's right.
So, Horsefield?
Yeah, this is the one. I mean, I can't find any evidence on the historic maps at all of anything actually being built on here, and so this seems to be the ideal candidate to have a go at. What you like with horses?
While John befriends the local old mares, I'm also getting ready to brave the elements. Phil, I stuck my head in about a quarter of an hour ago and there was just sand. Well, there's still a lot of sand, but is there something underneath it?
There is a solid block of rock.
Oh.
Yes, it looks like the whole of the bottom of the trench. Look, there's an example of it. I'll give you a quick brush up. Looks awfully like natural, and it's extending right the way across the bottom of the trench.
So does that mean that all the good stuff on John's geophys might turn out just to be rock?
Not at all. There was definitely a square shape on the geophysics. That looked too square, too regular to be natural. So it's still possible that we do have a building in here.
Well, what do you do now?
Well, first of all, we actually clear down onto the natural bedrock. We'll clean back as much of this sand. We'll clean this end of the trench right the way across. We'll put the muck in the digger. Then we'll move the digger back and extend the trench.
But so far, nothing.
So far, nothing.
It's not the best news then from Phil's trench, but the day's not over yet. And while he cracks on, I'm scooting down to another area that's already produced some stunning archaeology. It's just to the southeast of the castle, a large patch of sand dunes known as the Bowl Hole. This is a spectacularly beautiful place.
It is. It's a perfect picnic spot, providing you don't realise you're in a cemetery.
An Anglo-Saxon cemetery?
An Anglo-Saxon cemetery, yes. From about where we are, all that way over there to where the Bowl Hole proper appears.
So was this a key part of the research of your project?
It is, yes. It's actually the first excavation we ever did at Bamburgh. We were following a map reference and we discovered the Anglo-Saxon cemetery.
Scientists from Durham University worked alongside Graham and his team to excavate and study the bodies. It's a painstaking process that has already taken over 12 years. Dr. Sarah Groves has been involved since the very beginning and has applied the latest forensic techniques to these remains. The skeletons are only now beginning to give up their secrets. Hi, Sarah.
Hiya. So how many burials did you find here?
We've got at least 100 burials.
That's a lot in what seems like quite a small area, isn't it?
Yeah, and I think we've only just really caught one edge of it.
And what do we know about the people who are buried here?
We've got a whole range of people. We've got men and women and children, ranging from newborn infants right the way through to very elderly adults. So a real cross-section of people buried here.
So were the people buried here local?
We've got strontium and oxygen isotope data, which suggests that a large proportion of these people didn't grow up in Bamburgh. We suspect that they're people who've come either to trade with the castle or to work here, or possibly even as pilgrims who are coming to visit the really important holy sites associated with this area.
Well, that pilgrimage didn't do much good, did it?
Well, it's very interesting as well, because a lot of people have got chronic conditions. So they've got things like osteoarthritis, they've got really bad teeth, a lot of them. Some of them have got quite significant disabilities. And so it kind of suggests that we've got people who maybe are coming here for healing and happen to die and are buried here.
So would it be fair to say that Bamburgh was a magnet attracting people from miles around?
Yes, I mean, it's a major royal centre. It's one of the most important in the country. And also you have associations with saints. St Oswald's relics were stored in the basilica in the castle. That's a pilgrimage site. And you also have associations with St Cuthbert with the inner farm.
Sarah's going to give us a closer look at some of the skeletons later on. But with the sound of maniacal chiselling echoing out all over Bamburgh, it's time to see how our stone seat's shaping up.
Wow, that's coming along so fast.
I'm very pleased with it.
Yeah. Just standing here, you know, the whole thing is kind of emerging, isn't it, out of the stone as if it was already there.
It's wonderful. I was talking to Michelle earlier, and it's very difficult on a 2D piece of paper to understand the knotwork.
Yes.
I spent a lot of time drawing and redrawing, whereas once it becomes, you know, 3D like this, it becomes a lot more obvious where the knots go.
Yeah, and it's so big. Yeah. I'm used to working with small metal objects and seeing this kind of interlace in tiny, tiny detail, but this is so bold and big.
And blown up. It's quite in your face, but in a good way. And it's really nice for me because a lot of this sculpture that I deal with is very worn, very degraded. To see something quite fresh come out of the stones is really brilliant.
Yes, to see what it would have looked like when new.
There's nothing in your face about another recent find, a tiny, delicate piece of jewellery.
So I gather you've got a little cross turned up.
Yeah.
I mean, how often do you find something like that?
Never. No.
But it's made of bone, isn't it?
Yeah, that's right. I mean, we have a lot of industry going on in this trench. There's textile working, there's glass working.
And I gather you've had it looked at by various experts.
Yeah, that's right. Okay. We've had a number of opinions already. We had 8th to 10th century, and that's based on this raised boss area and the flared nature of the arms.
Yeah.
However, Graham, the director, he thinks it's high medieval.
Well, so after 1200 sort of time.
Yeah, so we've got a bit of a raging debate going on here already.
So the more experts you show it, the more dates you'll get, actually.
So do you want to volunteer your opinion? Add it to our collection?
Well, I've been trying to think of things that I've seen that shape.
Yeah.
And that sort of splayed arms to the cross reminds me a lot of stone monuments around northern Scotland, Western Isles. The trouble is that the people who've looked at those say they're anything between the sort of 8th century and the 12th century.
Right.
So, you know, I would still think it has a wide date range. I mean, I'd love to think it was Anglo-Saxon.
Yeah, that would suit all of us.
It's now nearly the end of our second day at Bamburgh, but before we down tools, there's time for a last check on Phil's progress. Still just desolate bedrock, Phil?
Well, there is some desolate bedrock, but we've also got archaeology, you old sceptic.
Come on then, show me.
You see, at this end here, we've got, at this end of the trench, a really, really smooth area. We thought that might be where people had actually walked.
What, a smooth area? Well, it's just glaciation or erosion or something, isn't it?
Yes, but what is not glaciation is this in the corner there. That is definitely a well-cut post hole.
That's lovely, isn't it?
In here, we've actually got some mortar, and that mortar appears to go over the top of the post hole.
And you haven't actually got a wall yet?
Ah, but you see, our trench is in here. What we haven't done is sample any of these lines which appear to be wall lines. If we extend out in that corner, which is where you're standing, we might actually pick up that wall line.
And we've got 1 day left.
We've got 1 day left.
Oh, plenty of time to find a Saxon royal palace then. I wish.
If you'd like to see more episodes like this, you can make it happen. Join over 10,000 Patreon members worldwide and see new digs take place and amazing additional extras.
It's Time Team's final day at Bamburgh Castle, and Phil's still hard at it in his trench in the inner ward. But he's under strict orders to stop digging bang on time, or we'll never get the lawn back in place for Saturday's wedding. And while he's racing against the clock, the huge trench at the edge of this castle site just keeps on throwing up finds. What are you up to, John?
We're actually up to something quite exciting. We're hoping to take out this stone, which we think is the carved one.
It's this bluey red one you're after, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly. When you first look at it, it just looks like it might be a bit of odd weathering. But when you feel the back edge and the sides, then you actually see that they're fairly well kind of faced, and this one is very differentially weathered, and it presumably is carving, we think.
Do my eyes deceive me, Mick, or could that colour possibly be paint?
Well, I thought it was blue paint in the design, and of course we know that they did actually paint these pieces of Anglo-Saxon sculpture, if that's what it is, so it could have paint left in it.
It is one of those things that when you first look at it you think, oh no, I'm just fooling myself.
I think certainly the top of it looks as if it's interlaced, which is the normal sort of pattern of, you know, strands interwoven in very complicated fashion.
It'd be nice if it was another bit of our chair, wouldn't it?
Oh yes, actually I hadn't thought of that, but it could be. But it'd be equally interesting if it was, you know, a piece of a cross. I mean, almost anything would be exciting,
Yeah,
you know.
yeah.
A gentle persuasion,
Yes,
then it
yes.
should just pop out.
Yes, there we go.
There we go. A bit of action. See, there's definitely something in there.
I wonder what this stuff is, this
A blue in it.
bluey grey stuff. Yeah. Can we have a look?
Yep, it's fairly heavy.
So, are you absolutely convinced, Mick?
About 90%, I think. I should still want to see it cleaned up and photographed in different lights and from different angles, you know.
It'd be very interesting to see what it looks like once it's been cleaned. Some of the coins that emerged from this trench yesterday have now made their way to the incident room, giving Helen and Sam the chance to take a close look at these stikers under the microscope.
From the very few stikers that I've seen before, I think I know enough to say that this is in exceptionally good condition.
It is, it's extremely good condition. I think it's the best one we've ever had, actually.
Wow. So what does it say?
Well, having had a look under the microscope, I think we've got an X here, which is part of, this will be the name, probably the Rex for king. And it all gets a bit confusing around this section.
Sam?
Jan Red.
Brilliant.
Early 9th century.
And when's he?
It's circa 810 to possibly 840, but thereabouts, we can't be too sure.
Right. So we've got so many of these stikers. Do you think it's possible that they were being minted at Bamburgh?
It's a very tempting thing to suspect. I mean, where else would you put a mint? You obviously got to be in the most secure location imaginable, and you couldn't improve on the security Bamburgh offers. So it's a very strong suspicion, but we have to wait for more archaeological evidence. Kate, if you could find us a coin die or something like that.
That would be lovely.
What Bamburgh gives you is the security and protection for an economy to flourish. And that's what these coins, even though they're quite low denomination, they imply quite a sophisticated and creditable economy where there is trust in credit.
Yes, because they're very, very unusual coins, aren't they? In that they're made of copper alloy. I mean, there's no silver in them, is there?
Only trace amounts, if anything.
Yeah. And we haven't had copper alloy coinage since the Romans. We won't get it again till, what, the 17th century? So they've got no intrinsic value. They have to just be accepted on trust. That implies a very stable political situation.
So it fits with the sophistication that we see flowering here in the late 7th, early 8th century.
If these coins indicate a stable and prosperous Anglo-Saxon Bamburgh, What about the individuals who lived and died here? Sarah Groves has now studied hundreds of skeletons from the site and uncovered a few surprises.
This individual is particularly interesting because they have a developmental condition which has affected their growth. So from the neck down, it looks like a juvenile, somebody who's maybe 16 at the very maximum, but the teeth are actually those of an adult, well into their 30s.
It's like an old head and a young body. It's quite creepy, isn't it?
It's very strange. If I didn't know that they were excavated together, I would have thought there'd been a mistake. They certainly would have stood out in amongst the rest of the community. And that's a really interesting thing, that they've actually survived into adulthood with this condition. So their family and their friends have cared for them.
What about this one?
This one is a man, but he's actually very small. He's quite a slight man, but he's very young. He's probably somewhere between his late teens and early 20s. And unusually, we know the cause of his death.
Go on.
He actually has a series of sharp force wounds, weapon trauma, to the left-hand side of his body. You can see here where it's been sliced right across the front of his shoulder. There's 2 ribs here which have been cut through, and also part of the pelvis. And just in here, there's a stab wound to this rib, where you can see the triangular shape.
So that's a pretty major attack, isn't it? All down one side.
Yeah, it's something very serious, and there's no sign of healing at all, so it caused the death of this individual.
It is fascinating how much we can tell now, isn't it?
It is amazing, isn't it? You get that almost a kind of life story of a person.
Is.
I mean, these really are the people. We spend all our time digging, looking for the remains of what the people did, but here we have the people.
It's gone strangely quiet at Bamburgh Castle. No more chiselling. And that can only mean one thing. After 3 days' frantic work, our stonemasons are getting ready to move their seat into position. It's no mean feat shifting a solid stone gift stool uphill to the castle keep. Luckily, we've got some time team muscle to hand. While the stonemasons press on, Graham's keen to show Mick a very different example of Anglo-Saxon carving. He's long been intrigued by the highly ornate whalebone box known as the Frank's casket. Now on display in the British Museum, it's thought to have come originally from 8th century Northumbria. The casket shows scenes from Anglo-Saxon myth and legend, but Graham thinks the carvings may also contain an important clue to Bamburgh's past.
The bit that interests me is the drawing here. It's very stylised, and it depicts what appears to be a beautifully decorated great hall with a shingle or stone roof.
So this is like a Romanesque arch, isn't it?
Yeah, it looks like an impressive building, sort of a great hall, palace kind of building.
Yeah.
And this is in a defended perimeter of a stone wall with strange triangular crenellations.
So it's almost showing it in plan rather than as a picture.
Yeah.
So your suggestion is, because this is Northumbrian, that this might in fact be a depiction of either Bamburgh, York or something like that.
Yeah. What if Bamburgh is the artist's model, and we got a very early depiction of the palace site at Bamburgh?
So it would mean that it had stone walls and stone battlements at that date then?
Yes.
Yeah. No, I think I could buy that. Certainly with a couple of glasses of wine I could buy it.
I could probably provide a bottle.
So has Phil Harding come up with any archaeological evidence to back up Graham's theory? Hey Phil, this extension's really come on then.
Yes, I know. It's exceeded or done everything that we wanted it to.
It's so different, isn't it? You've got all this black stone in the original trench, but then you've got this creamy grey stuff over here.
Well, the black stuff is the natural bedrock, and the creamy stuff is the mortar. Here's the corner of our previous trench, and you can see that we just had in one corner the edge of this mortar spread. Now we've opened it up. You can see that the mortar goes right the way across the trench and is going underneath the bolt.
Do you think that this mortar would be the foundation for a floor or something?
Well, the thing of it is that this natural bedrock is so undulating. If you want to build on it, it's logical that you want to level it up. And this mortar is the perfect material to level it up, to give you a firm foundation for both walls and floors.
Could that mortar be Anglo-Saxon?
From previous excavations, they've got mortar like this underneath that chapel. Underneath the chapel, it is earlier than the chapel. It is possible that this is a Saxon mortar.
Time's up. And while we may not have found intact Anglo-Saxon stone buildings, Phil's mortar is a good indication that they once stood on this spot. And that means it's certainly worth doing more digging here in the future, if there's ever enough of a gap between weddings. Stuart and John found too much disturbance to ever pinpoint the location of the Anglo-Saxon settlement. All the evidence still points towards the area around the church, but the search will go on long after we've left town. For Time Team, it's a valuable reminder that not all sites can be dug in 3 days. A place as large and as complex as Bamburgh can take decades to get to grips with. We've had 3 days of dramatic scenery and dramatic weather and dramatic archaeology too. But the question is, what have we learned about what this place was like 1400 years ago?
Well, we've not got to visualise the fortress in isolation up on the crag here. There's enough evidence to indicate there's a settlement over there where the church is, and the settlement's separated from the crag by boggy ground out there. The settlement would have had timber buildings dotted around on those slopes over there where the houses are now.
What about the Anglo-Saxon fortress itself up on the rock?
Well, the rock itself dictates the shape of the Anglo-Saxon fortress every bit as much as it does the castle we see today. We know that the basilica is on the very summit of the hill, and surely the Great Hall must have been up there too.
It's frustrating, isn't it, Mick? We can hardly see anything of it now.
Yeah, I mean, what Stuart says, he's got this later stuff on top, and you'd have to peel that off to look at the Anglo-Saxon underneath. And I reckon there's probably 50 years' work doing that. I mean, I don't know how long Graham intends to stay here, but that's probably what it needs, isn't it?
You're pretty passionate about this place. You'll stay for a bit longer, won't you?
I'd love a career of archaeology at Bamburgh, though perhaps I should start eating better.
Graham may be up for another half century, but our stay at Bamburgh is drawing to a close. Before we leave, though, there's just one last ritual to complete. Our replica gift stool is now very nearly finished. Anglo-Saxon kings used these seats to dish out gifts to their subjects. Accept the gift, and you are bound to lifelong loyalty to your king and master. Amidst the violence and war of Anglo-Saxon Britain, these ties were the glue holding kingdoms together. And not unlike the bonds of loyalty holding Time Team together. Or so our own rather shabby-looking King Phil might have you believe.
Matt, step forward. In bestowing this most noble of tools upon you, you offer and give loyalty to me forever.
I shall wield it in your honour. I swear to avenge your death. But if you think I'm getting back in the trench now in this weather, you've got another thing coming.
In that case, I'll have it back. So I could always do with a good trowel.
Join Time Team on Patreon to access exclusive 3D models, masterclasses and behind-the-scenes insights.